Awesome. So we're going to start with doing the Hitchcraft leg ladder. You'll end up with 2 leg ladders down each side, or alternatively, you can stop at the first leg ladder. The second is just for extra comfort and to burn extra rope if you have extra rope. So for this tie, we're going to start with a bite of our rope, and we're going to start either on your waist or on your hips. It's dealer's choice. I'm going to start mine on my hips. For this one, you can either I'm tying a reverse tension lark's head single column, or you can start with an Eastern style bula bula or equivalent. If you're tying with natural fiber, so hemp or jute, I suggest tying with an Eastern style bula bula or similar, because the reverse tension lark's head starts at the bite and it'll wear your natural fiber bite down. So I'm just reverse tensioning it, bringing it around my hips, nice and flat. I'm keeping it flat so when I'm in the air it's all nice and together, and I'm not going to get any extra rolls and have pain points. So I'm just making my single column here. Sweet. Now, as you can see, I've centered my single column so it is in the direction going down my leg, because we're building down the middle of the leg. So we don't want the single column to start in the middle here. We want it down the leg. You can either start with this leg or this leg, it doesn't matter. So once we're here and you've done whichever style single column you prefer, we're going to start our first leg ladder. So I'm going to go from outside to inside. So I'm going to bring my running ends around. Now, it doesn't matter if you go up high or down low. Yes, there are sensitive nerves there, but for everybody it's different. I prefer mine quite high into my groin. If I have it lower, that's when my nerves get a little unhappy, but some people are the complete opposite, so everybody's different. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen off and make a stem, and then I'm going to bring my running ends underneath and reverse that tension. I like doing the reverse tensions when I self-tie, because as soon as you do a reverse tension, it holds the tension and you don't need to be death gripping your rope. So I'm going to reverse that tension, go back underneath my leg, back around. Now, if you can see here, I've created what I like to call a U shape, and I'm going to bring my running ends underneath that U shape and through the middle of it. And then I've finished my first reverse tension band. Now, to lock it off, I'm going to reverse that tension, bring it under and up the entirety of that wrap. I'm going to come across the stem that I've created. I'm going to choke it. We're doing a munter hitch here. And I'm going to come down and underneath the other side of the band. Now I'm just going to make sure everything is flat and not pinchy, because pinchy will hurt when you're in the air. Perfect. So we've created our first band. Now we're going to do the exact same process again. We're going to create a little stem. So if you hold your little pokey finger, bring it around underneath, collect your stem, bring your running ends underneath, and reverse the tension. So I'm just trying to keep it centered, so when I'm finished, everything is dead straight in the middle of my thigh. Now I'm going to reverse that tension again, bring it all the way around, and I'm going to find that U shape again, and we're going to bring our rope underneath and through the middle of that hole, and reverse the tension, bring it under and up, choke the stem, except this is really inconvenient place, but I am going to connection you rope. If I was tying this in synthetics, which I am right now, I would just tie a half rope, do one more band, so I have 3 bands for comfort, and that's it. However, if you are tying with natural fibers, you'll need to come back up the stem and reinforce. So if you were finding that you have to join at a similar place to me, I would start with a whole rope. So I've started a whole rope just to show you what that practice looks like. But again, synthetics, you can just end here. So I'm going to come underneath, making sure that my join doesn't get disrupted by that band, making sure that it's still integral, whatever that word is. Cool. So I'm just going to dress that a little nicer. Yep, my join is sitting like away from the band. And now we're ready to start our third band. So I'm going to take it around my leg again, make a little stem, and see, I'm not shoving it like this and then trying to take it underneath to then reverse, because what happens there is it means this side is super tight and this side hasn't been tensioned at all. So you really want to be creating your stem and placing your rope where you want to collect it, and then reverse tensioning. And that'll become very important when you're in the air, because you will feel a lot of the tension on the inside, and if you don't like that, then it's not very sustainable. Cool. So again, we're reversing the tension, keeping everything down the middle, coming underneath, oops, finding our U shape and coming underneath and through the middle of that with our running ends. Cool. Then we're going to reverse the tension, bring our running ends under and up the band, creating our munter hitch. We are going to bring it across our stem and down underneath the other side of the band. Cool. At this point, because I am tying with synthetics, if I didn't connect a full length rope, I would literally end it here. To end it here, I would take my rope underneath, make a little loop, and drop my running ends through that loop to create a half hitch. I would maybe do that twice, depending how much rope I have left over. At that point, this is totally structural and totally fine for a suspension. However, if you are tying with natural fiber, you need to come back up and reinforce these stems because you're tying with an unrated rope. So by going back and looping across the stem, you're reinforcing it, which means you're adding a greater level of support to that stem. So hopefully it doesn't snap in suspension because it's unrated. But everybody's risk assessment is different. Cool. So if you are going to continue on and reinforce the stem, what we're going to do is we're just going to reverse the tension back up, take our wiggle finger, bring it underneath the stem, pull our tails all the way through, come across the stem. Now you don't want to keep spiraling it up the same stem because then that can create a shifting. And then what is really important here is that all lines are weighted equally, particularly important for natural fiber because your weight rating is non-existent. So you really need to make sure that all lines are being weighted equally to get as much strength or breaking strength out of your rope as possible. So we don't want to be coiling up it, we just want to be wrapping over it once. Coming, oh, my finger's stuck under my tights. Coming underneath the band, pulling our rope all the way through, hopefully without tangles like me. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come up to our next stem and we're going to simply wrap once underneath it and bring it up underneath the next band. Oh, I've lost and confused. Here we go. Cool. And then we're going to do it to our last stem as well. So we're just going to come under the stem, wrap it once only, and come up. To finish here, I like to half hitch on the inside, so the inside of my body towards my tummy of this stem, for the sole reason that once I half hitch here, this can't slide past this knot, it gets stuck. If I was to pull this way, it doesn't go anywhere. However, if I was to keep pulling this direction to the outside direction and this knot wasn't there, it can keep going. So that's how I'm going to do it. Now I've got a huge amount of rope left. One way to burn it off is to keep going around and create another ladder down this leg. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to, actually I want it to come underneath, so I'm just going to spiral, bring it back under that first stem because I want it on the bottom of this lines. I don't want it coming at the top. So I'm going to take it all the way around, making sure everything is nice and flat and equal tension. Going to bring it all the way around. And now we're going to either do one of two options. We can either half hitch here. So that looks like, so again, I want to try and line it up with the middle of this thigh. So that could look like just doing a simple hitch and bring it down, just making sure that when I lose tension inevitably there, that I'm bringing the tension back. Cool. So I can do this little loop-de-loop and I'm ready to start wrapping down my legs. Or you can do a weave. Now, the reason why I would choose a weave is if I'm going to be going down, face down onto this thigh. A weave is flat. So by being flat, it means that I'm not going to have an awful pressure point by having a knot or a big bulky hitch in that spot. So to do my weave, I'm going to bring that all the way back out. And we're back to our choice section. So to do the weave, I'm going to kind of hold my finger here. I'm going to go separate my lines, so I'm kind of in two sets, the upper set and the lower set. I'm going to hold my finger here. I'm going to go above the first, underneath the second, pull my running ends all the way through. This does take a little bit of practice, so like don't stress if it's all floppy. You can go and reset the tensions later. Now, because I went over, under, I'm going to go back over the first, under the middle, and then over the original set, and I've done a nice little flat weave. If your tension's not quite right, just kind of fiddle with it till you get the tensions right. It's in the middle of my thigh now, so I'm going to start wrapping. So again, the exact same process here. I'm going to wrap, I'm going to wrap towards the inside. If I was to wrap to the outside, see how that weave unlocks? We don't want that to unlock. So we're going to weave, we're going to start wrapping to the inside of our thigh on this side. So we're going to do our first wrap. Again, place it on the inner of your thigh where you prefer it, either higher or lower into your groin. I'm going to create my stem and just take that tension back a little bit. Now I'm going to reverse the tension, bring my running ends underneath my leg, find my U shape and bring my running ends through the middle. Then I'm going to reverse that tension and do our munter hitch lock off. So reverse it, bring it up and underneath the band, choke across the stem and down underneath the other band. Now I've got only a little bit of rope left, so I'm going to do I'm not going to get quite a full band, but that's okay. So I'm just going to pull it under here, reverse that tension, bring it up and underneath, creating a munter hitch here. And then I'm going, instead of pulling it all the way through, I'm just going to do a little loop and half hitch through here. Now I'm going to commit a really big sin here. And because I've got one long tail and one little tail, I'm just going to split my lines. I'm just going to create a little loop and make some loop-de-loops. Basically just half hitching until my rope goes away. Now, if this was in a natural fiber, hemp or jute or equivalent, I would only be suspending off this leg because this leg is the only leg that has been reinforced with a stem. This leg, I have not gone up and reinforced a stem. So if I was only natural fibers, I wouldn't be suspending off this one. However, this is synthetic, so it's totally fine and a-okay. So again, we've created two leg ladders going down, and we've created this really wide 6-line band at the back that's really nice and comfortable and supportive. Once you're finished, just kind of get your finger in there, or 2 fingers, and follow the train tracks. So you just want to flatten all the lines out. So you're just going to take your fingers at the back and just flatten all of the lines out there. Same as for any bands on the inside or the outside of your legs, wanting to make sure that they're nice and flat and comfortable. It can get quite pinchy on the inside of your thighs sometimes, so just making sure that they're flat to start with really does help reduce that. Yeah, but I think that's everything to do with the way that we tie our leg ladders here at Hitchcraft. Thank you. So I'm going to go through where I would put hangers on these leg ladders. So I'll just grab this very beautiful red chroma knots in a very apparently poorly done daisy chain. Perfect. Cool. So for this style, there's a couple different hangers you can do. I would preference taking the last 2 in the set. If you have a longer leg than I do, I could have probably fit a 4th band down here. I probably could have done that. I would preference taking the last 2 of whatever I do. The higher up that you take your hanger to your hips, that's where all the weight will be loading. And it can be okay if it's on your hips and you like the pressure to be located there. If it's in your waist and you don't like waist rope, that's where you're going to get the loading. So the lower off you go, you're going to have it more comfortable because the loading is going to be on the center mass of your thigh. Cool. So I'm going to take my hanger and I'm going to do, I like to call this one the snake method. Oh, I do not have a carabiner. One will magically appear any moment now. So what I'm going to do is, because I like hanging upside down, I like having my hangers loaded or set in the upside down position. So as you can see, all of my lines are weighting equally in the direction that I'm going to be spending most of my time in. Why that's important is because it means it'll be equally loading off both bands, and as I described, the carabiner has magically appeared. So I like to set my carabiners in the position that I'm going to be spending the most time in. If my position that I was spending the most time in was going to be horizontal, I would load these in a horizontal direction because, as you can see already, because I weighted it in that direction, this one's a little looser than the bottom set is. So it means it will be taking more pressure up under this last band than this band. So it won't be equally taking the load, which can be uncomfortable. So I'm just going to do my hangers. And there we go. So that's one version of doing a hanger on this harness. The second version of doing a hanger on this harness, I may actually not have enough rope for this one, but we'll find out. Cool. So what you can do, if I had reinforced this, if I was tying in a natural fiber harness, you could take it straight across both actually. So you're lifting both thighs all at once. But you get the idea. You can create a hanger between both bands, so you can lift both up in the air all at once. Now, what you could do as well is you can also, the third type of hanger you can do is between the bands on this side. We show it for the chest harness, but what it looks like is this underneath. Pull it all together. I am angling this as if it was in a horizontal position. Cool. So that's a horizontal position. The reason why you may want to choose this is if you want to go face down, and you can just slide it to the back. It does mean then you'll be face down on all these knots, so dealer's choice. But it does mean you can take this hanger wherever you want, and you can go all the way. You can take it on the inside if you so please. However, that would be very pinchy if you do it with skin and not a slippery surface. But that is one of the reasons why you'll choose this, is if you wanted to go all the way around. However, in saying that, as you can see, these bands are closing together, which is okay if you are aware of it, and that's the kind of choice you're making. So that's it for hangers on this harness.